All right, we're back. This is part number 3 of the Systems Analysis 2200, the Managing Information Systems course. We left off with instant messaging. Just before I do that, I did actually find the groups that Google has created, and this still is around. If you look at some of these groups, is 2011. There is one here that was created in 2020. These are some links. I didn't actually. It almost looks like emails the way that they're set up, but these are groups that have a very specific focus. This was an old course I took years ago that popped up in my list. It was a class I was taking up at SFU, and it was back in 2011. There was 37 students, and we created a group, and we started chatting about a particular course, and there's all these threads that you can go through to read up on these groups. So I just don't see a lot of this anymore. There might be some people that are using this. I don't use this much anymore myself. I think there's other tools out there that are probably better to use than this. Although if you want to attract a wider market in the world, this might be a place to look at. There's so many tools today that do the same thing. All right, let's move over to instant messaging. Internet Relay Chat, IRC. Some of you, if you're in your late 20s, you might remember this. MIRC was a tool that we used, and it had emojis that were introduced at this time. And today we basically replaced that with SMS or just instant chat. So this is kind of an older precursor to what we do with our telephones now, with our instant messaging that we use now. And even with instant messaging, you can create these private rooms and have chat sessions with groups of people and to have discussions. And there's so many different ways of doing this. I believe Facebook has this option, Twitter has this option, and there's so many other ones that are out there that allow this. There was an old one called MySpace, vaguely remember back in the 90s. That was a precursor to Facebook that also had a tool that was similar to this. Now, some of the apps Windows Messenger, Yahoo Messenger, Google Chat. A lot of people use Facebook Messenger now as well. And you guys probably use this more than I do. And of course, some of the newer ones have been intersected with social media. So now we've got things like Snapchat, and you guys know what Snapchat probably is. Personally, I've never used Snapchat. I've seen people use it. It tends to focus in on a particular demographic group, which I'm not really in, so I don't use this one. I've seen, I can understand a bit of how it works. Internet telephony is, of course, now used everywhere. The protocol is used VoIP. It's called Voice over Internet Protocol. It's used by companies like Skype, Teams, Zoom, just so many companies that use the VoIP, and it's so easy to make phone calls, and we can make phone calls virtually for almost no money at all, especially if you're using like Skype. It's pretty much free to use that. And you got to think it's pretty amazing that as I'm talking at one side of the world, and how that voice could be transferred into a digital signal, transmitted across the planet, and received almost instantaneously by somebody else. It's really an amazing thing. At the early days, a drawback was the lack of call quality, although I find now sometimes my Skype connections are clearer than my cell phone service. So, it says a drawback, and that was a drawback, I'd say 5 years ago, but nowadays I think the quality has become extremely good. So we don't have to worry about lines anymore because busy signals, because that's been alleviated. If someone's on the phone, it'll still alert them. I guess with telephone lines, we still had, like, you could hear a beeping on your line that someone's trying to call you. But that was just a recent technology in the last 15 to 20 years. The other nice thing is recording your voice. Instead of sending a text, now we can just talk into our phone, translates into a text message, or just send it as a voicemail as well. And again, you're not restricted. Back in the 80s, when you made a long distance telephone call, they would charge you up to $1 a minute to talk to somebody on the other side of the world, which sounds crazy because back in the 80s, $1 was probably worth, $4 today. So it's amazing at how much the internet has saved us in that way and created more communications, of course. All right, let's move on to the next learning objective, which is web applications. And then what we're talking about now is what this course really focuses on, and that's managing information systems, which are essentially web applications. And what'll be the focus of your presentation and your research on this in this class. So there are several areas in the industry that use, of course, IT technology. Some of you might be in accounting industry or marketing or hospitality or computers or human resources or project management. It goes on and on. And each of those areas has multiple web applications that help manage and service that. This slide right here really focuses on managing information systems through the internet. And your research project will be dealing with finding one of these, and specifically a software as a service or a software system or a software web application that pertains to your area of study. Now, the example I have here, the first one is the IT area. So if you're in information technology, you might look at a program called Zendesk. Zendesk is a software as a service that helps IT professionals log, track, and solve IT issues and problems. So when someone calls the help desk and says, I have a problem, logging into my computer, they can open up the Zendesk as a software that's being delivered as a web application and then log the call and then communicate with the user, communicate with the experts or whoever, and keep track of that data. And that's really where we're going with this course, because what we're trying to do is prepare students to start working with these managing information systems and understand them at a little deeper level. Now, the next one I have here is an accounting or maybe a customer relation management. So Zoho is a product. It's another software as a service that pertains to sales. Customer relation management is basically sales. Customers managing is sales. Accounting, it also falls into the accounting because this particular software has accounting like the general ledger, accounts payable, accounts receivable, I believe, in here. And if you guys do a Google search on Zoho and look at the Indeed website under jobs, you'll probably find a lot of companies in Vancouver use this particular MIS system to manage their sales or their accounting. So I'm hoping that you might look at that one possibly too. This could be another example. Now, if you're just in sales or you're taking a marketing course, then you might look at this one. This is the number one software as a service customer relation management software that was built, and it was one of the first ones out, and they got the head start. So Salesforce is probably the biggest one. These are all examples of MIS systems that you guys can evaluate or do some more research on. SAP is that, I think, simple accounting program, but it is an international, global organization. In fact, Vancouver has their SAP office, downtown Vancouver in Yaletown, consumes an entire city block. So you can imagine the wealth of this company. So they have SCM, human resources, procurement, analytics. These are different areas. Maybe you're going into an analytics program. You might want to look at the SAP program. Again, it's a software as a service as well. So these are all examples of web applications that you might consider for doing research for your particular presentation. Now, another industry that's been extremely disrupted by the internet is tourism and travel. Back in the 80s, we used to have tour companies and travel agents, and this has pretty much been dissolved. We used to offer programs at the college for becoming a travel agent and teaching how to access all that information. But the industry has really migrated over to e-commerce sites or websites that provide this to the users, and they pass on the savings Oh, well, they used to pass on the savings. Nowadays, they don't do that much anymore because a lot of the travel companies don't even exist. It's hard to find a travel agent these days. I mean, they're still around, but they're not that common. So there's so many travel websites out there that help you book, your plane tickets and cruises and all hotels and rental cars and all that kind of stuff. You don't need agents to do that anymore. You can do it yourself and supposedly save money, which I believe you can. And the nice thing is they put out a lot of competition out there, so you can shop around. So some examples of these sites are things like Expedia, Travel.com, Travelocity. You guys probably use some of these sites. I use Google Flights, or the new website is called flights.google.com, or it can also be translated as google.com/flights. They're both the same. And you can check out all the different airlines at one central location. I will say, though, that there is some trickery that goes on with these. And for example, when you guys connect to a site, you pass on a cookie, and that cookie is that the company knows that you've been on that site and you've looked at a particular flight. If you come back to it the next day, sometimes they'll increase the price of that flight. I've had this happen to me several times, and to get around that problem, I use a virtual a VPN. I use a VPN to go like pretend I'm coming in from a different country, and then I should do a video on it and actually show how that's done. Because if you're thinking about a ticket and you go back to it the next day and it's increased in price, that might not be the true fact. So one thing I will encourage you to do is go on Google Flights to look for a travel deal, but then go to the actual company, whether you're flying with Air Canada or EVA Air or Japanese Airlines or Lufthansa, whatever you're flying with, go to the actual company afterwards. I find that's probably the best. Anyway, don't want to get into a whole lot of travel tip sites. My point there was just saying that the internet has disrupted a lot of these industries. Tourism travel is just one of so many. Another area that the internet has disrupted drastically is publishing. Well, there's still bookstores out there. So many books now are put out on e-versions, and they've got tablets dedicated to just doing this. They got the Kobo, they got the Kindle. You can watch it on your iPad and all sorts of other devices. So this industry has been majorly impacted over the last 10 years, that's for sure. And you probably are reading ebooks. I mean, this course has an ebook, right? We don't even have to purchase the paper anymore. We don't have to ship that book anymore. It also is augmented with additional features. So with the e-text, you can embed videos and hyperlinks and audio and augment that textbook even more so. So there's a lot of advantages for this. They can distribute sample chapters to you without having to, go to a bookstore. Although there's something nice about going to a bookstore, finding a book, and just sort of thumbing through. There's another aspect to that people like. But the movement has been going towards online. The other thing is, if somebody wants to publish a book now, you can go to Amazon and publish your own book and sell it online without having to go to a publisher now. So it's an incredible advantage. It's opened up the market to so much more content contributors that couldn't have been out there before. And it's also searchable. So we can go in there, we can search for things that we would never have found in the past. So it's really expanded the whole human ability to have access to this information. And there's other and there's so much free stuff online now. There's so much free textbooks. I think the Gutenheimer project has over 10,000 publications in it that's free that you can use to read. It almost seems endless now. Gutenberg. Oh yeah, I put a link in here. The Gutenberg link right here, and it has just so much information. So there's so many books out there that you can get for free. 60,000 free ebooks out there. So I thought it was more than that, or 10,000. So they just keep adding to this repository, and it's free. So that's why they have a donation page right there. Amazon publishing. This is something I'm going to be doing myself. I'm in the process of writing my own book, and I don't plan to go to a publisher with it. I'm going to go directly to Amazon. I have friends, they have published several books on Amazon, and they actually make a passive income off this. Some of them make between $500 to $1,000 a month selling books on Amazon, and they don't have to Amazon just takes a percentage of the sales. So Amazon's motivated to sell your book because they get paid for it as well. Higher education. Well, I don't have to tell you guys that the internet has drastically impacted higher education. I mean, without the internet, we wouldn't be at school right now. We'd be shut down. This has impacted every branch within an organization, from the departments to the faculty, how they teach, to the content of the programs, to the resources that you guys have access to. It's all going online. Now, there are some incredible pros to this, but there is some downsides to online that the internet has done. I find it's disrupted learning in a sense, because there's only a certain type of learner that likes to learn online. People don't like to just sit in front of their computer all day long. They like the social interaction. They like to have the breaks. They like to go for coffee. They like to discuss with their cohorts and their faculty members about the course. And that's doable online, but there's still barriers. For example, I'm not available to just sit there and chat with you guys. Can send me an email, but most of this course is in an asynchronous mode. I'm not synchronizing up with you guys. So to me, that's a downside. Should I have synchronous? That's a great question. A lot of faculty do that. They have a time and place where they get online and they chat. I tend to record my lectures so that you can go back and watch them or not, and fast forward them, or watch them again, or pause them. If we're in a live situation, you can't do that. You come to class 3 hours a week and you sit there and listen to an instructor present their materials. There's pros and cons to both. So I think we should try to take advantage of these pros for sure, but it takes time and knowledge. A lot of faculty members even don't have that experience with it. I've done I did a master's degree in online education, so I've got a little more advantage, I think, than other faculty when it comes to delivering stuff online. But anyway, that's just a little bit about my thoughts on higher education, as the internet has disrupted this drastically. You can get an entire degree online. In fact, if you go to Coursera, you guys can take courses at Ivy League schools for virtually free. Let me show you. All right, this is a great site. Everybody should be aware of this if you aren't already. It's called Coursera.org. And what this is a repository of all the universities around the world that provide MOOCs, massive open online courses, for anyone around the world who want to learn about virtually any kind of materials. And it's usually for free, or they have a small user fee, and they have the user fees just to prevent people from joining but not participating. Now, let's say you're interested in data analytics. This is a particular area that I'm interested in doing data analytics. And there's courses from IBM, directly from IBM, which is an introductory course, and you can go in here, and most of these are for free. A lot of these are like the University of California. You can go to Harvard, to Berkeley, to Stanford, to Yale. All these top universities have these courses, and most of them are free. So you're probably thinking to yourself, what's going on here? Like, why would these universities do this? Well, a lot of these universities have a mandate to provide a certain amount of educational level of courses free to the public. And what they do is sometimes you'll get 1,000 students in a class. It's online. And this is just an extreme example of how the higher education has been disrupted by the internet. We now have access to top level Ivory School universities, to anybody in the world. And a lot of these, you can actually get degrees or diplomas or certificates by following a particular area if you want. Now, don't think that they're online and they're going to be easy, because they're not. I signed up for one of these and I thought I'd do it in my spare time, and it was daunting. So this is a full course load. When you commit to this, it's a full on. If you want a master's of business administration, you can get one from the University of Illinois through this program. Now, you might be thinking, well, Ryan, why are you telling us this? You're gonna get us to move to a different institution. And I think that's fine. If that's better for you, I think that's great. You should do whatever works best for you. I just want you to be aware that there's this type of stuff out there. Now, in this course, I do lynda.learning, or the LinkedIn Learning. I should say. And that's kind of geared towards our institution and for our course. But this is just another level. And there's a lot of these out there. Another good one that you guys can try out is Khan Academy. Khan Academy is a K through 12 plus 2 years of post-secondary courses. And you guys can, if you guys have friends or family that are struggling with school, this is definitely something that you should consider looking at. This is a free online K to 12 curriculum program that is of extremely high quality. This is one of Bill Gates' philanthropy initiatives where he pays for this, basically to educate anybody in the world K through 12. So there's really no excuse for anybody not getting a good education if they have internet access. This is the site. But this is just another example how the internet has disrupted education. It is extreme what the internet has done to higher education. So it's way beyond the scope of this slide. You can get professional certificates programs, like I said. All right, here's another one, real estate. Okay, well, real estate and buying and selling real estate globally now is so easy. I mean, that's partly why real estate has actually been so incredibly popular, and how real estate prices can still be pushed because real estate is globally listed. Back in the 80s, you couldn't find a place in another country for sale. It was so difficult. So it precluded all those buyers. Here in Vancouver, we have an incredible real estate market, which is dominated by international buyers. So this is just another area. I don't want to get into all the details here. This is one of the websites I would suggest if you want to just for fun go in and have a look at it. You can basically go into Zillow and look at any real property in the United States. This is a database open to the public. I've used this for looking at all sorts of stuff. I just recently looked up Joe Biden's house just to see where he lived, how much he pays in taxes, and it's got a lot of information in it. It's kind of fun. And there's, of course, all sorts of other websites that you can do a search and link to. You can also do things like getting appraisals to find out what the properties are worth, demographics of where they're located and what's around you. All that kind of stuff that you need to get into real estate is easily accessible now on the internet. Employment, another great area where the internet has disrupted the industry. I always encourage students to check out internet employment sites to find out what your industry pays. I've had so many students that have been taking a program, and when they graduate, they don't realize that the program only pays $15 an hour, and they can't even live on that. They want to do that as a job, but it's not sustainable. They actually come back to school. I've had a lot of students come back to school and say, "Oh, you've already taken a degree in a particular area. Why are you coming back into computers?" They said, "Well, because I can't live on that wage." So go to sites like Indeed.com or other sites. I get you guys to do this in your research. I want you to go into that site and research your area that you're pursuing a job in, and look at the industry and what it pays. You can also go to salary.com and find out what the average salary is to find out what you're going to be making in that particular area. This could have an impact on your decision of where you're going to go in your educational track. So the internet has drastically disrupted employment. I can't imagine today trying to find a job without the internet. Your online banking, another industry that's been disrupted. Of course, we do most of our banking online now. I don't even go into my branch office anymore and talk to my banker anymore. It's just a thing of the past. Once in a while, I'll talk to them on the phone, but most of the time, it's just corresponding online through the website. So I won't go through all the details about this one, but one thing I will say is when I'm negotiating things like a mortgage for your house, you can find all sorts of additional options and find the best deal and save yourself literally thousands and thousands of dollars by doing your homework and researching your financial institutions and organizing this way. And there's all sorts of tools. In fact, if your area of study is in the finance, if you guys are taking a finance degree or diploma, there are lots of managing information systems on financial institutions for tracking mortgages and loan applications and how did people pay and so forth. Software distribution, another area. This is just on how software is distributed. We used to actually go to stores and walk in and buy a box, open the box. There was a CD inside there, or even before that, floppy diskettes, if you know what those are, and load that into our computer. Of course, nowadays the internet has completely disrupted that, and there's been some great features of that because it's pretty much eliminated most of the pirating of software that which was going on in the 80s and the 90s. Makes it a lot easier. I mean, if you want a software program now, you just basically go to the website, click on download, create an account, download the software, and you're up and running. I will say that as you guys are researching your projects, you will have to download sample programs, and you'll be doing this. All right, so that's probably enough for this video. I'll see you guys in the next part.